I walked into a penthouse where 20 nannies had fled in terror within 48 hours. The Korean crime lord's triplets were throwing knives at paintings. I asked them if they wanted pancakes instead. Maya Thompson, a 29-year-old single mother drowning in debt and double shifts at a downtown diner, stood in the marble lobby of Manhattan's most exclusive residential tower at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, her daughter Zola's hand clutching hers. The lawyer who'd bankrupted her after her ex disappeared hadn't just taken her savings. He'd taken her belief that she deserved anything better than survival mode. The housekeeping position she'd applied for was her last shot before eviction notices became reality. But the woman who'd hired her over the phone, Mrs. Choi, the house manager, looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. Her hands trembled as she pressed the elevator button to the penthouse. 23 nannies, Mrs. Choi whispered, her accent thick with exhaustion. 23 professionals. None lasted 2 full days. The agency won't send anyone else. Mr. Jang is. He's at his limit. Maya's stomach dropped. I thought this was a housekeeping job. It was. Until this morning when Nanny 23 locked herself in the bathroom and called an Uber. Mrs. Choi's eyes went wide with something that looked like genuine fear. The boys, they're not bad children. They're just... She stopped as a crash echoed from above, followed by shouting in rapid Korean. They're just very spirited. The elevator doors opened to what looked like the aftermath of a Category 5 hurricane designed by vengeful preschoolers. 3 identical 4-year-old boys, Minho, Daeyoung, and Taehyun, had turned the sprawling penthouse into a disaster zone. Couch cushions formed a fortress. Expensive art supplies created a Jackson Pollock nightmare across white walls. And in the kitchen, flour coated every surface like Manhattan had experienced a freak snowstorm. Through the chaos, Maya spotted him. Woo-Sik Jang stood shirtless in the kitchen doorway, phone pressed to his ear, his entire torso a canvas of intricate tattoos. A dragon coiled from his ribcage to his shoulder, Korean characters down his spine. His jaw was clenched so tight Maya could see the muscle jumping. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept in days. He was terrifying. He was beautiful. And he was clearly 2 seconds from a complete breakdown. I don't care what you have to pay them, he growled into the phone in English, his accent making the words sound like a threat. Find someone. Anyone. I have a meeting in 2 hours I cannot. That's when Minho, the apparent ringleader, launched a full sippy cup directly at his father's head. Woo-Sik caught it without looking, still talking. I'll call you back. Mrs. Choi grabbed Maya's arm. We should go. This was a mistake. I'll find you something else. But Maya was already walking forward, past the terrified house manager, past the threshold of common sense, straight into the war zone. Because she'd seen something everyone else had missed. The boys weren't destroying things out of malice. They were destroying things because they were scared, exhausted, and desperate for someone, anyone, to stay. Maya knew that look. She'd seen it in her own daughter's eyes when her father left. Hey, Maya called out, her voice cutting through the chaos with surprising authority. Who's hungry? 3 pairs of identical dark eyes snapped to her. Woo-Sik's phone slowly lowered from his ear. And Maya Thompson, broke single mother from Brooklyn, smiled at the sons of a Korean crime lord and asked the question that would change everything. How do you boys feel about pancakes? Maya had exactly $47 in her checking account and 3 hours of sleep under her belt when she stepped into the lobby of the Sterling at 6 a.m. The building's doorman, all polished brass buttons and judgmental eyebrows, had looked at her twice before letting her through, taking in her discount store blazer and the desperate edge in her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Zola was with her neighbor Mrs. Patterson, probably still asleep, her small hand clutching the stuffed elephant Maya had promised she'd never have to give up when they lost the apartment. That promise was looking shakier by the day. The eviction notice gave them 2 weeks. Maya's diner shifts barely covered groceries. The lawyer fees from the custody case her ex had abandoned halfway through had decimated everything else. This job, whatever it actually was, had to work. You're early, Mrs. Choi said when Maya stepped off the elevator on the 32nd floor. The Korean woman looked like she'd been crying. Or hadn't slept. Possibly both. That's good. We need someone who shows up. The listing said housekeeping? Maya ventured, but even as she said it, a crash resonated from somewhere deep inside the penthouse, followed by high-pitched shouting in Korean and what sounded distinctly like breaking glass. Mrs. Choi's face crumpled. It was housekeeping. Until an hour ago. She pressed her fingers to her temples. The agency sent nanny number 23 yesterday morning. She quit at midnight, locked herself in the guest bathroom, and refused to come out until her Uber arrived. Nanny number 23? In 6 months. Mrs. Choi's laugh was hollow. Mr. Jang's wife passed 2 years ago. The boys were only 2. They've been through 14 house managers, 23 nannies, and 6 au pairs. No one stays. They can't handle the, she gestured vaguely at everything, situation. Another crash. This one sounded expensive. Maybe I should, Maya started, but Mrs. Choi grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Please, just meet him. Meet them. Mr. Jang is at the end of his rope. The walk down the hallway felt like entering a war zone. Maya could hear the chaos escalating. Furniture scraping, children shrieking in what might have been delight or rage, and underneath it all, a deep male voice speaking rapid Korean with barely controlled frustration. Mrs. Choi opened the door. The penthouse looked like a small bomb had detonated. Couch cushions everywhere. Cereal scattered across marble floors. 3 small tornadoes in matching dinosaur pajamas racing through the wreckage with the kind of manic energy that came from zero boundaries and maximum exhaustion. And in the middle of it all, phone pressed to his ear, stood Woo-Sik Jang. Maya forgot how to breathe. He was shirtless, sweatpants riding low on his hips, and his entire torso was covered in tattoos. A massive dragon that coiled from his ribs up over his shoulder, Korean script down his spine, something that looked like flames wrapping around his forearm. His jaw was clenched, dark eyes tracking his son's with the exhausted precision of someone who'd stopped sleeping in shifts and just stopped sleeping entirely. He looked dangerous, exhausted, devastating. I don't care what it costs, he growled into the phone, his accent turning the words sharp. Find someone willing to. The smallest boy launched a juice box at his head. Woo-Sik caught it without looking. Maya's hands started shaking, but not from fear. From recognition. She knew exactly what drowning looked like. Mrs. Choi's grip on Maya's arm was turning her knuckles white. We should leave. This isn't. You don't have childcare experience, and Mr. Jang is clearly. Maya pulled free and walked straight into the chaos. The triplets noticed her immediately. 3 identical faces turned toward her, dark eyes narrowed with suspicion. The smallest one, still clutching another juice box like ammunition, said something in Korean that sounded distinctly like a challenge. Hi, Maya said, stepping over what looked like the remains of someone's briefcase. I'm Maya. What are your names? Silence. The kind loaded with calculations only 4-year-olds could make about whether this new adult was worth acknowledging or destroying. Woo-Sik had turned around, phone lowering from his ear. He stared at her like she'd materialized out of thin air. Or like she was absolutely insane. Also possible. Maya crouched down to their eye level, ignoring the flour coating her shoes. You know what I think? I think you guys are probably starving. When's the last time someone made you actual breakfast? The middle boy. Maya could see a tiny mole near his left ear that distinguished him, tilted his head. Breakfast? Yeah, real breakfast. Not cereal from a box. She stood up, rolling up her blazer sleeves. How do you feel about pancakes? We don't like American food, the tallest one announced in heavily accented but perfect English. Appa says. Who said anything about American pancakes? Maya was already heading toward the kitchen, stepping over toys and destruction like she navigated disaster zones every morning. I'm thinking hotdog style. Sweet. Crispy edges. You ever had those? She hadn't, actually. But she'd watched enough cooking videos during her insomniac 3 a.m. shifts, and her ex's mother, back when she thought she'd be part of that family forever, had taught her the basics of fusion cooking. Desperation made you creative. The kitchen was a nightmare. Flour everywhere, dishes piled in the sink, and something sticky coating the countertops. Maya found a mixing bowl, eggs, milk. Started pulling ingredients with the efficiency of someone who'd worked restaurant kitchens since she was 16. You, she pointed at the tallest boy. What's your name? Min-ho. Suspicious. Guarded. Min-ho, I need you on egg duty. Can you crack eggs? She handed him the carton. Your brothers can measure. We're running an assembly line here. We don't take orders from. Min-ho started, but Maya was already putting a bowl in front of him, and something about her tone, firm, not angry, like she expected compliance rather than demanded it, made him hesitate. Listen, you can keep destroying stuff and making your dad lose his mind, or you can help me make the best pancakes you've ever tasted. Maya met his eyes. Your choice. But I'm making them either way, and I only share with my crew. 30 seconds of calculation. Then Minho cracked an egg. His brothers materialized at the counter within seconds. Maya didn't hear Woo-Sik enter the kitchen 10 minutes later. She was too busy teaching Dae-young how to flip, laughing as Taehyun argued that his pancake was clearly bigger than his brother's, flour in her hair, and something that felt dangerously close to joy warming her chest. When she finally turned around, Woo-Sik was frozen in the doorway. His sons were eating, laughing, sitting still. "When can you start?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it for anything but commands in months. Maya looked at the boys, covered in batter and maple syrup, and actually smiling. "Today," she said. "I can start today." Maya and Zola moved into the penthouse 3 days later with everything they owned crammed into 4 suitcases and 6 garbage bags. Woo-Sik had offered one of the guests suites, a bedroom bigger than their entire former apartment, with an attached bathroom that had heated floors and a tub Zola immediately claimed as a swimming pool. "This is like a palace, Mama," Zola whispered that first night, pressed against Maya's side in the enormous bed. "Are we really allowed to stay?" Maya kissed her daughter's forehead, ignoring the knot of anxiety in her stomach. "As long as I do my job, baby. As long as I do my job." The triplets waited exactly 12 hours before launching their first test. Maya found Minho in the kitchen the next morning, standing on a chair, systematically emptying the candy drawer she'd already discovered and relocated to a high shelf. He looked her dead in the eye while unwrapping a lollipop at 7 a.m. "Breakfast," he announced in English, then switched to Korean, presumably something defiant based on his tone. His brothers appeared within seconds, watching, waiting to see what she'd do. Maya poured herself coffee, deliberately slow. "Candy drawer's up there now, huh? Someone's a good climber." She took a sip. Must have taken real determination. Minho blinked, clearly expecting yelling. "Thing is," Maya continued, pulling out eggs and rice, "that candy's gonna make you feel like garbage in about an hour. Stomachache, headache, the works. So here's the deal. You can eat it now, or you can eat actual breakfast and have candy after dinner. Your body, your choice." "I choose candy." Minho bit into the lollipop defiantly. "All right." Maya started cooking, the smell of sesame oil and scrambled eggs filling the kitchen. She plated food for Dae-young and Taehyun, who sat down immediately, then made a plate for Zola when she wandered in rubbing sleep from her eyes. Minho lasted 20 minutes before the sugar crash hit. Maya found him curled on the couch, looking miserable. She sat beside him with a warm bowl of rice and a gentle hand on his back. "Rough morning." He nodded miserably. "Want to try breakfast now?" No judgment. He ate 3 bowls. The wall incident happened that afternoon. Maya walked into the hallway to find Dae-young and Taehyun decorating the pristine white walls with permanent markers, creating what looked like an abstract battle scene between dinosaurs and spaceships. "Wow," Maya said, making both boys freeze. "That's actually pretty creative." They stared at her, markers hovering. "But here's the thing about art. It goes on paper or canvas, not on other people's walls. This is your dad's house, and we respect his space. So," she pulled out cleaning supplies and paper towels. "We're going to clean it up together, and then I'm going to get you an actual art wall in your room. Deal?" "But it's hard to clean," Taehyun protested. "Yep. That's why we don't draw on walls." Maya handed him a sponge. 20 minutes of scrubbing teaches that lesson better than 20 minutes of me yelling. "Let's go." It took an hour. Their arms hurt. They complained. But they cleaned every mark. Maya didn't see Woo-Sik watching from his office doorway, phone forgotten in his hand, something that looked dangerously like hope crossing his face for the first time in 2 years. The storm hit Manhattan at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, the kind of violent spring thunderstorm that turned the sky purple and made the penthouse windows rattle in their frames. Maya woke to screaming. She found all 3 boys in the hallway, clustered together and sobbing in rapid Korean, their small bodies shaking with each crack of thunder. Minho was trying to be brave, standing in front of his brothers, but tears streamed down his face. Hey, it's okay." Maya dropped to her knees, opening her arms. They crashed into her immediately, all 3 of them, burying their faces against her shoulders and neck. "Just a storm, babies. Just noise. It can't hurt you." "Yama," Taehyun sobbed against her collarbone. "Mother." The word cracked something open in Maya's chest. "I've got you," she whispered, holding them tighter. "I've got all of you." She built them a pillow fort in the living room, dragging every cushion and blanket she could find. Zola woke up and helped, her gentle presence calming the boys further. They huddled inside the fort with flashlights, and Maya told them stories, mixing up fairy tales until the boys were giggling at her nonsense, thunder forgotten. When she finally got them back to sleep 2 hours later, tucked into one bed together like puppies, she found Woo-Sik standing in the kitchen. "You called them babies," he said quietly, not looking at her. "No one's called them that since," he stopped. "Thank you." Maya poured herself water with shaking hands, adrenaline finally crashing. "They're 4. They're allowed to be scared. The last nanny locked her door during storms. Then she was an idiot." Maya met his eyes. Kids don't need perfect. They need present. Something shifted in his expression, but before he could respond, someone pounded on the penthouse door. Hard. Urgent. Woo-Sik's entire body went rigid. "Stay here." But Maya followed him, watched him open the door to reveal a young man bleeding from his shoulder, speaking rapid Korean while glancing behind him like he expected pursuit. Woo-Sik pulled him inside, already barking orders into his phone. "Kitchen," Maya said. "Bring him to the kitchen." Woo-Sik stared at her. "Ms. Thompson, I was pre-med for 2 years before I ran out of money. Kitchen. Now." She cleaned the wound, a knife slash, shallow but bloody, with steady hands while Woo-Sik watched her like she'd grown a second head. The young man kept apologizing in broken English until Maya told him to shut up and hold still. When she'd bandaged him and he'd disappeared into the night, Woo-Sik cornered her by the sink. "You should be running." His voice was flat. "Dangerous. You know what I am. What this means. You're Jang Woo-Sik, the dragon of Lower Manhattan. Your organization controls half the trade coming through the ports." Maya dried her hands calmly. "I'm from Brooklyn, not Mars. You think I don't recognize a syndicate when I see one. And you stayed." "I stayed." She turned to face him fully. "I'm not scared of you, Woo-Sik. I'm scared for you. Those boys need their father. And honestly," she smiled tiredly, "right now you need me." He stared at her for a long moment, something raw and unguarded flickering across his face. "Yeah," he finally said, voice rough. "I really do." Maya had completely forgotten about Zola's birthday until her daughter mentioned it 3 days before. So casually it broke Maya's heart. "I'll be 7 on Saturday." "That's okay though, Mama. I know you're working." Working. Like Maya hadn't failed to plan anything. Again, like being broke and exhausted was an acceptable excuse for forgetting the most important day of her daughter's year. She'd started planning something small. Cupcakes from the bakery downstairs, maybe a new book. When Saturday morning arrived and Zola came running into Maya's room at dawn, eyes wide. "Mama, Mama, come look." The living room had been transformed overnight. Purple and gold balloons, Zola's favorite colors, covered the ceiling. A table overflowed with presents wrapped in glittering paper. And in the center of it all stood an elaborate Princess Castle cake that must have cost more than Maya's weekly salary. Woo-Sik emerged from the kitchen with orange juice and a small smile. "Happy birthday, Zola." Maya couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She'd mentioned Zola's birthday exactly once, in passing, while making dinner 4 days ago. He'd remembered. He'd planned this. The triplets thundered in wearing party hats, shouting "Happy Birthday" in chaotic unison, and suddenly the penthouse was full of 7-year-old chaos. Zola's classmates that Woo-Sik had somehow contacted, a magician, face painting, more food than 20 children could possibly eat. Maya found him on the terrace an hour into the party, watching through the glass as Zola laughed so hard she snorted, surrounded by friends and brothers who loved her. "You didn't have to do this." Her voice came out thick. "Yes, I did." Woo-Sik didn't look at her, jaw tight. Mrs. Choi mentioned Zola's father never celebrated her birthday. Not once in 7 years. He was too busy celebrating himself. Then he was a fool. Woo-Sik finally turned to her, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her stomach flip. "She's a good kid, Maya. She deserves to feel special. You barely know her. I know she reads to my sons every night, even though they pretend not to understand half the English words. I know she saves the strawberries from her lunch because Dae-young likes them. I know she asks if I'm okay when I come home late." His voice softened. "I know she's yours, which means she matters." Maya's heart stopped. Restarted. Stopped again. Before she could find words that wouldn't sound like a confession, the terrace door burst open. Zola ran out, cake frosting on her face, the triplets behind her. "Mr. Jang, come cut the cake with us. Please. It's your birthday, Zola. You should. I want you to." Zola grabbed his hand with the unself-conscious trust of childhood. Then she paused, looking up at him with those big brown eyes that were so much like Maya's. Can I call you Appa? Like the boys do? Woo-Sik went absolutely still. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Yes, if you want to. Okay, Appa. Zola beamed. Come on. Maya watched her daughter pull a Korean crime lord toward a princess cake. Watched him go willingly. Watched her boys cheer and celebrate like they'd been siblings forever. And she realized with terrifying clarity that she wasn't just grateful to Woo-Sik. She was in love with him. The kids crashed hard at 8 p.m., sugar exhausted and sprawled across the triplets' bedroom in a tangle of blankets and stuffed animals. Maya had checked on them twice, unable to stop smiling at the sight of Zola curled between Minho and Taehyun like she'd always belonged there. She found Woo-Sik on the terrace, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, staring out at the Manhattan skyline like it held answers he desperately needed. The city glittered below them, oblivious and beautiful. Thank you, Maya said quietly, joining him at the railing. For today. For her. You didn't have to. Stop thanking me. His voice was rough. I wanted to do it. Why? The question came out softer than she intended. More vulnerable. Woo-Sik was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, he didn't look at her. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. Fast and brutal. His jaw tightened. The boys were barely 2. They don't remember her laugh or how she sang to them. They just remember the chaos after. The parade of strangers trying to manage them. Me failing to be enough. Maya's throat closed. And then you walked into my kitchen covered in flour, and my sons, my wild, angry, impossible sons, sat down and ate breakfast. Like it was normal. Like we were normal. He finally turned to her, and the rawness in his dark eyes made her breath catch. You brought peace to my chaos, Maya. You made my house feel like a home again. Woo-Sik, I know what I am. What my life means. His voice dropped. I've been terrified that the moment you realized the danger, the reality of my world, you'd run. Take Zola and disappear, and I'd lose. He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Lose what? Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Everything that matters. The confession came out like he was tearing it from somewhere deep. The boys smile now. They speak English. They eat vegetables. Zola calls me Appa, and my sons have a sister and I. His control finally cracked. I come home at night and there's laughter. There's life. And it's because of you. Maya stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him. Close enough to see the exhaustion and hope and fear warring in his expression. I'm not running, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Maya. Her name sounded like a prayer. A warning. I see you, Woo-Sik. All of you. The dragon tattoos and the late-night phone calls and the men who show up bleeding. She reached up, her hand trembling as she touched his jaw. I also see the man who learned to braid hair for his sons. Who remembered my daughter's birthday. Who looks at his boys like they're his entire world. You're part of that world now. His hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm against his face. You and Zola. You're part of everything. Good, Maya breathed. He kissed her like he'd been holding back for months. Like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His hand slid into her hair, the other wrapping around her waist, pulling her flush against him as she gasped against his mouth. Maya had been kissed before. This wasn't that. This was claiming. Confession. Coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Woo-Sik pressed his forehead to hers. Stay, he whispered. Forever, Maya promised. Maya saw Trey in the lobby 3 weeks later, and her entire body went cold. He looked exactly the same cocky smile, same designer sneakers he couldn't actually afford, same entitled posture that had once made her think confidence meant strength. Now she just saw the hollow predator underneath. There's my girl, Trey said loudly, drawing stares from the doorman and residents. Living large, huh? Upgraded from our apartment to this palace. Maya's hand tightened on Zola's. Her daughter had gone rigid, face pale. Zola, go upstairs. Now. Nah, let her stay. She should hear this. Trey stepped closer, and Maya caught the calculation in his eyes. He'd always been good at math when money was involved. See, I've been doing some research. Jang Woo-Sik. The dragon. Word is he's worth about 50 million, controls half the import business in the city. His smile sharpened. And my baby mama is living in his penthouse, playing house with his kids. You signed away your rights to Zola. You have no claim. I signed away rights when you were broke and desperate. Circumstances changed. Trey pulled out his phone, showing her a screen full of legal documents. I talked to a lawyer. Turns out I can petition for custody, especially when I tell them you're raising my daughter in a crime lord's house. Child Protective Services would love that conversation. Maya's vision tunneled. You wouldn't. 50,000 and I disappear. Forever. Full custody surrender, signed and notarized. His voice dropped. Or I make your life hell. Your choice, baby. She said no. Woo-Sik's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. He emerged from the elevator with 4 men in dark suits, moving with the coordinated precision of people who'd ended conversations permanently before. Trey's bravado flickered. This is a private. You're threatening my family and my building. Woo-Sik stopped 3 feet away, and Maya had never seen him look more dangerous. The dragon wasn't a metaphor anymore. It was a promise. That makes it very much my business. Your family? Trey laughed nervously. She's the help man. The nanny. She's mine. Woo-Sik's voice was absolutely flat. The woman I'm going to marry. The mother of my sons. Which makes Zola my daughter. And you. He stepped closer, and Trey actually flinched. You're a mistake I'm about to correct. One of the suited men placed a briefcase on the lobby table. Woo-Sik opened it, revealing neat stacks of cash. 50,000 like you asked. My lawyers have papers for you to sign. Full surrender of parental rights, permanent no-contact order. Woo-Sik's smile was terrifying. You take the money, sign the papers, and disappear. Or you refuse, and I make a phone call. 5 minutes later, every outstanding warrant, every debt, every shady deal you've ever made comes due simultaneously. You can't. I can do anything I want. Woo-Sik leaned in close enough that only Trey could hear his next words, but Maya saw her ex's face drain of color. Choose carefully. This offer expires in 60 seconds. Trey's hand shook as he reached for the pen. It took 4 minutes to sign everything. The notary, who'd apparently been waiting in the car, witnessed and stamped. Trey grabbed the briefcase and practically ran for the door. Maya's legs gave out. Woo-Sik caught her before she hit the marble floor, pulling her against his chest. He's gone, he murmured into her hair. He's never coming back. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. He pulled back, cupping her face. Nobody threatens my family. Ever. Saturday morning came soft and golden, the kind of spring morning that made Manhattan feel almost peaceful. Maya woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. Never a good combination in a house with 4 children. She found the kids in the kitchen, flour everywhere again, attempting what looked like pancakes. Woo-Sik supervised with barely contained panic, still in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, hair messy from sleep. We're making breakfast, Zola announced proudly, holding up something that might have been a pancake in a previous life. Like Mama taught us. I see that. Maya bit back a smile, catching Woo-Sik's helpless expression. Maybe I should. No, we got this, Minho said seriously, then promptly dropped an entire egg on the floor. Okay, maybe we don't got this. They salvaged breakfast together, all 6 of them crowded in the kitchen, laughing when Dae-Young insisted his pancake looked like a dinosaur and Taehyun argued it clearly looked like a spaceship. Zola settled the debate by declaring it looked like a space dinosaur, which somehow satisfied everyone. It was Zola who asked the question, casual in the way only children could be about life-altering topics. Appa, are you going to marry Mama? Maya choked on her coffee. Woo-Sik went completely still, fork halfway to his mouth. Because if you marry her, Minho continued, following his sister's logic, then Zola would be our real sister. Not just living here sister. You should marry, Taehyun added helpfully. You smile more when she's here. And you kiss on the terrace when you think we're sleeping, Dae-Young said matter-of-factly. Maya's face went nuclear. You, how did you? We're 4 not blind, Minho said, sounding disturbingly like his father. Woo-Sik set down his fork with careful precision. Then he stood, walked to the cabinet above the refrigerator, the one Maya never used, and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's heart stopped. I bought this 2 weeks ago, he said quietly, coming back to where Maya sat frozen at the kitchen table. I was waiting for the right moment. A perfect moment. He glanced at the 4 children covered in pancake batter, at the chaos that had become their normal, and smiled. But I think this is better than perfect. He dropped to one knee on the kitchen floor where she'd first made his son's breakfast. Where everything had started with flour and hope and desperation. Maya Thompson, you walked into my war zone and made it home. You loved my broken boys until they weren't broken anymore. You brought light into a house that had forgotten what light looked like. His voice roughened. I don't have smooth words. I have truth. I love you. I need you. And I'm asking you to be my wife, my partner, my family. He opened the box. The diamond caught the morning light, scattering rainbows across flour-dusted countertops. Marry me. Make this official. Make us whole. Maya looked at Woo-Sik kneeling in their chaotic kitchen, at 4 children holding their breath, at the life she'd accidentally built from desperation and pancakes. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, laughing through sudden tears. Yes. Absolutely yes. The kids erupted in cheers. Woo-Sik slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her while their children, celebrated around them. Later, covered in syrup and surrounded by family, Maya thought. She'd come here broke and desperate and terrified. She'd found home instead. They married 6 weeks later in a ceremony that perfectly captured their impossible family. Half traditional Korean piebeek, half Brooklyn spontaneity, entirely chaotic. Maya wore a hanbok for the first ceremony, deep red silk that made Woo-Sik's breath catch when she walked toward him. The boys wore matching traditional clothes and managed to stay still for almost 7 whole minutes before Taehyun started fidgeting. For the American ceremony after, she changed into a simple white dress while Zola served as flower girl, taking her job so seriously she counted out exactly 3 petals per step. Mrs. Choi cried through both ceremonies. Mrs. Patterson, their neighbor from the old apartment, kept muttering from eviction to this and dabbing her eyes. But the moment that mattered most came 3 months later in a Manhattan courthouse. Judge Morrison looked over her glasses at the family crowded before her bench. Woo-Sik in an immaculate suit, Maya with her hand gripped tight in his, for children arranged in order of height, all wearing their best clothes and most serious expressions. This is unusual, the judge said. Dual adoptions. Mrs. Jang adopting 3 children, Mr. Jang adopting 1, all simultaneously. We're a package deal, Your Honor, Maya said. Has been from the start. The judge's stern expression cracked into something warmer. I've reviewed the home studies, the background checks, the interviews. I have to say, I've never seen more enthusiastic recommendations. Your social worker used the word miracle 4 times in her report. Pancakes, Minho stage whispered to Zola. It started with pancakes. The judge smiled outright. Well then, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I hereby grant these adoptions. Congratulations. You're officially legally, completely a family. The gavel came down. Zola burst into tears and threw herself at Woo-Sik. The triplets dogpiled Maya. And somewhere in the chaos of holding children who were now legally, permanently, forever theirs, Maya caught Woo-Sik's eyes across the courtroom and saw everything she felt reflected back. We made it. We're real. Saturday morning, 2 weeks later, Maya woke to familiar chaos. Children arguing about whose turn it was to crack eggs, Woo-Sik attempting to mediate while simultaneously trying to prevent Minho from adding hot sauce to the pancake batter. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her family. Her family, legal and permanent and beautifully, chaotically hers. Mama, Zola spotted her first. Come help. The boys want to make kimchi pancakes, but Appa says we need regular ones too. Compromise, Maya said, tying on her apron, the one that said world's okayest chef, that Woo-Sik had bought her as a joke. We make both. Assembly line style. She slid past her husband, who caught her waist and pulled her in for a quick kiss that made the kids groan dramatically. Good morning, Mrs. Jang, he murmured against her lips. Good morning, Mr. Jang. For children, 2 types of pancakes, 1 slightly burned batch, and infinite laughter later. Maya looked around the flour-covered kitchen and thought about the day she'd walked into this penthouse desperate and broke. She'd been looking for a job. She'd found everything instead.